Every day, Kenyans face countless hurdles. Families struggling to put food on the table, children fighting malnutrition, and communities in need of quality healthcare. In a world where a small gesture can have an enormous impact, TV and Radio 47 invite you to be part of something incredible. Introducing Tender Wema. With just 1 shilling and 50 cents daily, taken from your airtime or data, you can be the light of change. Dial star 354 star 47 hash and witness your compassion in action. Every shilling you contribute directly empowers education, healthcare, and community progress. Your 1 shilling and 50 cents might seem like a drop in the ocean, but imagine the ripples it creates. Better access to education, improved healthcare, and a safer environment for all. Remember, every shilling is a building block. Every contribution a step towards progress. Let's ignite Mimini CC into a legacy of change. Let's sculpt a better tomorrow for Kenya. Dial star 354 star 47 hash to subscribe today. Tender Wema with TV and Radio 47.
On the next episode of The Realtor.
Anytime you hear of affordable housing, what comes in the mind of many people is that I can be able to manage one, or I can acquire a property somewhere. Now, there's one model that has been in the Kenyan market, goes by the name off-plan model.
Off-plan model means that you start selling your houses before you construct them.
This model has been faced with a lot of challenges.
So as a buyer, if you find that I'm doing like 4 or 5 projects, then you need to check at a time. You need to check my capacity. Do I have a track record of delivering several projects at a time?
Now, this is what we shall be discussing on this coming Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Did you know that a credit card or a similar rigid object can be used to remove a bee stinger? Scraping the stinger sideways with a card can help remove it without squeezing it, reducing the amount of venom injected.
Your nose alone won't always tell you if your eggs have gone bad. To find out, gently place uncooked eggs in a bowl of cold water. If an egg sinks to the bottom, it's A-OK. If it floats, it's seen better days. There's no shortage of remarkable ideas. What's missing is the will to execute them. Seth Godin.
Indeed, it is a few minutes to 9 p.m. right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Good evening from the Bomas of Kenya in Kenya's capital. My name is George Maringa. You must be wondering why I'm dressed up like this, and I'll tell you in a few minutes, because this conversation, rather this show, is coming ahead or on the eve of Utamaduni Day. That is the 10th of October this year. That is tomorrow, a big day, especially for matters, heritage, culture and the arts. And tonight, we are at the Bomas of Kenya, specifically in Kisii village, or is it Luya village that we were informed, and to have a reverberating conversation with the Principal Secretary in the department that concerns this day. That is Honorable Umi Bashir. She is the PS for Culture, Arts and Heritage. Madam PS, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you too. I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. And I can see you have, a cocktail, an array of, attires that you've put on. First of all, what are you wearing tonight?
Well, I'm adorned in Maasai attire, but I've mixed it with Somali. And I have also with me Kisutu from the Giriama people. Yeah.
Brilliant. And the conversation, or rather this Utamaduni Day, first of all, has been confused for Huduma Day. So, you're the right person to ask, was it firmly put as Huduma Day or Utamaduni Day?
Well, that's a good question. There has been some sort of confusion before, but that confusion was put to rest thanks to an amendment in the Public Holidays Act. That was an amendment done in the year 2020. And it was amended from being Moi Day, that is the 10th of October, to now Utamaduni Day. So there was some sort of, confusion last year, especially while people were celebrating Huduma Day and there were guys who were celebrating Utamaduni Day. But at the end of it all, the legislation is very clear and that it is indeed Utamaduni Day. Absolutely.
And what can we expect, especially from the day that is happening tomorrow, but even as you try to seek the question, and I'd ask you perhaps a yes or no question. Is Kenya losing its culture? Are Kenyans losing their culture?
Yes, indeed. Our cultures are being eroded, but we can still save our cultures.
Brilliant. We can still save it. We shall be finding out how to save the Kenyan culture right here on the Daily Report tonight with me, George Maringa, my guest, Umi Bashir, the Principal Secretary, the PS in the State Department for Culture, Arts and Heritage. You want to stand by for that and much more coming your way right here. But first, our top stories tonight. Tonight, the High Court issues a temporary halt to Kenya's plans to send a policing force to Haiti. Also tonight,
tutafuata ardhi zote ambazo zilichukuliwa kiholela na kutumia ujanja na zitarudi kwa wananchi.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission wins a coup in the fight against corruption. Plus, a new push to have authentic faces at the forefront of the fight for awareness of mental health challenges in our society.
Mental well-being is a need that we all have, and it does not discriminate.
It is now easier to report and surrender. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started. Beat the November 1st deadline. It is your turn to surrender and report qualifying unclaimed financial assets.
It is a pleasure to have you join us on the program. Our sign language interpreter is Catherine Simalo. We invite your feedback at George Maringa _ on Twitter, at TV47 News, at Umi M. Bashir, that is the PS. Channel your questions, your thoughts, your feedback regarding the conversation tonight. We look forward to floating some of the questions that you will have for her tonight. And to our top story tonight, and President William Ruto has today commissioned the MV Uhuru 2 at the Kenya Shipyard Limited in Kisumu County. MV Uhuru 2 is the first ship to be built at the new Kisumu shipyards in Kenya from scratch at a cost of 2.4 billion Kenya shillings. The ship was built at the Kenya shipyard by the Kenya Defence Forces. The MV Uhuru 2 has a carrying capacity of 1,063 tons and can travel at a speed of 14 knots or 25 kilometers per hour. The president also launched the tamaking of the Bondo Uyawi Kibanga Liunda Beach Road in Siaya County and inspected the Dogoye Bridge in Bondo, presided over the elevation of Pini Owacho Dispensary to a level 3 hospital in Migori. Absolutely. Now, the Justice Chachomita of the High Court has temporarily put a halt to the plans by the government to deploy police to Haiti or any other country for that matter. This is after a petition was filed by Dr. Ekuru Aukot, Miruru Waweru, as well, and the Third Way Alliance party petitioning the court to make a ruling on the plans on grounds that the Kenya Kwanza government did not follow due process as envisaged in the Constitution, citing the move contravenes parts of the Constitution that state that only the Kenya Defence Forces can be deployed out of Kenya and that the National Police Service is a national service and shall only function throughout Kenya. Moige William brings us that report.
Plans to deploy 1,000 Kenyan police officers to Haiti by the government are now in limbo after Ekuru Aukot, Miruru Waweru and the Third Way Alliance moved to court to block the state on grounds that the constitution was not properly followed. The petitioners cited that there was no record of a cabinet meeting or resolution to show that due process was followed. The petitioners also argue that the offering of police officers for deployment to Haiti contravenes Article 240 Section 8 and 243 Section 3 of the Constitution, which provides that only Kenya Defence Forces can be deployed out of Kenya and that the National Police Service is a national service and shall only function in Kenya. The petitioners also highlighted that, guided by Section 3 of the National Police Service Act number 11 of 2014, that Kenya Police can only be deployed outside the country in defense of Kenya and during a state of emergency, read under Article 58 of the Constitution, reiterating that deploying members of the National Police Service to Haiti is a clear contravention of Section 6 of the Act, as Kenya is not at war with Haiti and is not a state of emergency. Further, the petitioner cites that President William Ruto single-handedly and without public participation entered into an agreement with the United States and the United Nations to deploy officers to Haiti, contrary to Article 232. Earlier, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki said that the Constitution allows President William Ruto to deploy the 1,000 officers to Haiti with the approval of Parliament, referring to Article 240 of the Constitution, which states, and I quote, "The Constitution requires that for the President to deploy any force outside the country, whether it is KDF or any other force that constitutes organ of national security, Parliament must approve." Last week, President William Ruto welcomed the United Nations Security Council's approval of a Kenya-led multinational security support mission in Haiti, promising that the people of Haiti will finally get justice. Kenya has pledged to deploy 1,000 security personnel for the mission, seeking to combat a decades-long gang violence characterized by widespread murders, kidnapping and extortion. Mwigi William, TV47.
To the coast now, where the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, has succeeded in reclaiming 31 acres of land grabbed in Chale Island, Kwale County, back to the Tiaty Marine National Park after winning the case before the Kwale Environment and Land Court. EACC, led by their Chief Executive Officer, CEO, that is Twalib Mbarak, and political leaders from Kwale County, had on Monday paid a visit to the island, where he declared, that is Twalib Mbarak, intensified efforts by the Commission EACC to recover all the public assets acquired illegally. The island, which hosts traditional shrines for the Kaya elders, is also likely to regain its glory as a tourism destination.
For over 20 years, 31 acres of land from Chale Island has been in illegal ownership, effectively blocking valuable opportunities for tourism and culture, including traditional practices from the Kaya elders who kept their shrines on the island.
Shughuli nyingi sana za kitamaduni zimefeli miaka karibu 20 mpaka sasa. Na tunaamini kwamba katika kufeli watu kuingia hapa kisiwani na kufanya zile shughuli zetu ambazo ni za kitamaduni, kumechimbua vitu vingi. Kuna vitu vingi ambavyo vimekuja vinatuletea wasiwasi.
That is until now the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has succeeded in reclaiming the public asset of the Tiaty National Reserve as ruled by the Kwale Lands Court after they laid an overwhelming amount of evidence before the court over illegally acquired title deeds since the case started in 2020.
Hawa watu tungaliwapatia ile kitu inaitwa alternative dispute resolution, yani makubaliano kando ya koti warudishe zile title, turudishe hizi viwanja kwa wananchi. Lakini wameamua kwenda kotini. Sisi pia tuko na mawakili. Sisi mimi na mawakili karibu 100. Kwa hivyo wao waache waendelee kuchukua mawakili wao, watalipa legal fees, lakini sisi tunajua hizi kesi ni kesi very strong. Evidence is overwhelming.
Kwa hivyo katika mkakati huo ambao tunaita asset recovery, tume ya EACC inaweza ikaenda mahakamani kushtaki mtu yoyote ambaye anashukiwa ya kwamba ameiba mali ya serikali, na baada ya kusikiliza ile kesi, mahakama inaweza ikaamua ikiwa ushahidi wao unatosha, basi inatoa amri ya kurudisha mali hiyo kwa umma. Hilo ndilo ambalo lilifanyika.
Kwale is the second island from the region to be reclaimed back by the actual owners after Mkwiro Island. The cultural value of the island, located approximately 45 kilometers from Mombasa, is immense, portrayed part by the traditional practices of the Kaya elders, who for many years have found difficulty in accessing their sacred worshiping practices on the island.
Nikiwa gavana wenu, hii safari inaendelea, hairudi nyuma. Na niwaulize Wakwale wote, yeyote ambaye anatafuta haki yake ya ardhi, asiende kinyume.
Niahidi kwamba tutakuwa na maaskari kwa kisiwa kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna mtu mwingine sasa ataweza kuja kuingilia hii island, tukishirikiana na county government of Kwale.
In the war against corruption, the EACC Commission has acknowledged that a huge challenge still exists as Kwale County joins the rest of the country in dealing with many issues of land grabbing, where fake title deeds are used to intimidate the local community.
Tutafuata pole pole, na sisi tushaona hizi karatasi nyingi ni za urongo.
To address corruption in the country, Kenyans have been asked to cooperate with the commission. Paul Munio, TV47 from Kwale County.
Matters liquefied petroleum gas LPG, and with 70% of Kenyans depending on cooking with kerosene and wood, both of which are insufficient and air polluting, President William Ruto's cabinet has approved a groundbreaking LPG growth policy designed to help households switch from conventional fuels to liquefied petroleum gas as a cleaner alternative. And as Mike Kagwango reports, the cabinet sitting in Kisumu approved the Kenya Health Emergency Preparedness Response and Resilience Project.
So that we can deliver to the people of Kenya.
With the cabinet's approval to a groundbreaking LPG growth policy, the government aims to build common user LPG import ports, giving cheap cylinders to low-income families and encouraging the use of LPG in inexpensive housing and educational institutions. To achieve this, the government will establish common user LPG import terminal at the Kenya Petroleum Refineries Limited in Mombasa, a move that will make it possible to have government-to-government deals in the purchase of LPG in the open tender system. The government also plans to establish storage and filing plants in other areas. The cabinet stated that these policies seek to lower consumer prices, increase transparency, and promote public safety, all of which support environmental sustainability and public health. Additionally, the strategy plans to partner with the business sector to distribute a 6 kg cylinder to every poor household among the 4.4 million considered poor by 2025. The government intends to do this by eliminating taxes on liquefied petroleum gas cylinders produced locally. By the end, liquefied petroleum gas will be used by over 22 million people in Kenya. In its first meeting since President William Ruto's reshuffle, the cabinet also approved the Kenya Health Emergency Preparedness Response and Resilience Project, aimed at developing a vaccine production facility at the Kenya Biovax Institute in cooperation with the World Bank. Additionally, it will improve the Pharmacy and Poisons Board's regulatory procedures and the National Quality Control Laboratory's capacity for quality assurance and control. In order to address the issue of transport safety, Cabinet approved the creation of the Kenya Transport Accident Investigation Bureau, whose mandate is to conduct thorough investigations into transport-related accidents and make safety recommendations. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, to end stigma and mental health campaigns, the need to put at the forefront persons with lived experiences of the illness. Now, this is according to mental health advocates who say stigma remains the biggest hindrance to mental illness treatment and management. These stakeholders were speaking during the Rising Above Stigma Mental Health Summit 2023, which is happening against the backdrop of the World Health Mental Day commemoration tomorrow.
Fides Wanjiru is a mental health advocate who has suffered mental health illness. She says the biggest challenge during her recovery was stigma, a matter that inspired her advocacy journey.
It was until I started going for therapy classes, or therapy sessions, that my parents were called, my mom was called, and we went through a few 3 sessions with her. So she got to understand what exactly having depression meant. Before that, even my friends in school, people didn't really understand what depression really means. People just think when you say you have depression, it's because you're stressed or something. They don't really understand it could be an illness.
According to stakeholders in the mental health space, stigma remains the biggest hindrance to mental illness treatment and management in the country.
Before, when you want to put face to mental illness, it will be the negative kind of thinking or expectation. When you talk of mental illness, you expect someone to is chained down, is being taken to Madare. But now here we're saying someone looking well dressed, someone who is well respected in the community, coming out and saying that I was also undergoing a mental health illness or a mental health challenge. So that has been really key in changing the narration.
Stakeholders who are now advocating for the use of authentic faces in mental health campaigns say there has been improvement in awareness of mental health in our society today. However, more needs to be done.
Some things are looking promising, but when you get to significant statistical change, that often takes many more years to be able to get population-wide irreversible change. So it's going to need ongoing investment for it to sustain those early promising signs. Because we're talking about generations of prejudice and shame and exclusion and discrimination, and that doesn't change overnight. So this needs to be a long-term effort.
The stakeholders were speaking during the Rising Above Stigma Mental Health Summit 2023, which is happening against the backdrop of the World Mental Health Day commemoration tomorrow. The theme this year being Mental Health is a Universal Human Right. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
To Mwingi now, and business in Mwingi came to a standstill as residents moved to retaliate against gun-wielding bandits who gunned down one villager at Chulungwa after terrorizing the area for 2 days, allegedly without police intervention. Now, the late Mwimi Mwasia was sprayed with bullets by the alleged gang of bandits who have been canvassing the Nguni ward area for the last 2 weeks. Chichi Josephine with more.
A middle-aged man was on Sunday night killed by bandits at his home in Makongoni area of Chulungwa, Waita Ward. Mwimi Mwaswa was brutally murdered by suspected bandits who were spotted exactly 2 weeks ago in Nguni Ward, armed with what is described as a mix of modern and crude weapons.
Nilitoka kazini jana jioni saa 2. Nikaenda jikoni nikapiga ugali. Nikaacha mzee kwa nyumba. Kuweka mboga jikoni nikaona mtu anaingia kwa jikoni anakunja hapo karibu kwa mlango. Kamuuliza kwani wewe ni nani? Akakimya. Nikatoka naye akaenda kuelekea kwa nyumba hii kubwa. Nikapiga nduru. Akarudi nyuma akaniambia mimi nikakimya. Ndio mzee aliamka. Kuamka akakutana naye anataka kufungua nyumba. Kukutana naye akamuuliza wewe ni nani? Hakimya. Wewe ni nani? Hakimya. Huyo mtu alimpiga risasi 2 at the spot. Sasa mzee alipopigwa mimi nilikimbia nikatorokea msituni.
The alleged gun-toting bandits have allegedly been terrorizing locals for weeks without intervention from the police.
Sisi tukasema hatutaachilia mwili iende kabla tujaona mkubwa wa security. Hata kama ni DCC ama DCIO ama OCS ama deputy OCS. Tu address hii issue vizuri sana. Hao wananchi hawezi kubali mwili iende na wajajua security yao iko namna gani. Tunashukuru kama wewe umetoka the other side ya east. Umekuja kutusaidia. Hiyo umeongea tumekubali.
Hao watu sijui ni watu gani kwa sababu kama yule aliingia hapa ajui Kiswahili.
Mwingi Central DCC Catherine Juruge and Nguni OCPD Ibrahim Wako have urged locals to remain calm as police officers have been deployed in the area and are currently hunting down the suspects.
Hii mtu tusipopata hatutalala. Na hii mtu ile kitu nataka kuomba raia. Ukiona hii mtu ni hatari kwa maisha yako, tafadhali don't confront. Usiconfront yeye. Tuweze kupata habari tu, mtupee habari.
Yangu ni kuhakikishia kwamba watu watapatikana. Sawa. Lakini mtusaidie.
Chichi, Josephine, TV47.
Thank you for staying with us. Time now to make sense of the sense to business news. And debts owned by public sugar mills to the government might be written off following an endorsement by the cabinet following parliamentary approval. This as President William Ruto calls the change a solid move to facilitate the turnaround of the ailing sugar sector. These and many other resolutions were agreed upon by the cabinet in Kisumu County. Hibak Sayed with more.
The sugar sector, which thrived in the 70s, has turned into a shell of what it used to be. Sugar companies and public sugar mills jointly owe a whopping 117 billion in bank loans, tax arrears and penalties, farmers and employees' dues. This broken down means 65 billion is owed to banks, 50 billion in taxes and nearly 2 billion shillings in farmers' dues. The cabinet wants to wipe the slate clean and give the sector a fighting chance through penalty and tax exemptions coupled with pardons of debt owed to the government. Meanwhile, requests for proposals for the leasing of the 5 state-owned sugar mills will be published in a fortnight. The cabinet also forwarded proposals in the pharmaceutical sector. Hibak Said for TV47.
Thank you, Hibak, for that. And e-commerce is the possible savior of the dwindling outreach of the Postal Corporation of Kenya as the parastatal seeks an additional 7 billion shillings to roll out what it is calling a modernization-centric approach as a turnaround tactic to outdo its competitors. PCK Postmaster General John Tanui says the strategy will take a multi-sectoral approach to take advantage of innovation as an edge in the ever-changing courier.
Postal services in the country, which dates back to the 17th century, gained a central body in the late 90s, where the Postal Corporation of Kenya monopolized mail and courier services in the country and beyond. However, the company's influence and use has been on a downward spiral, as individuals change their sending preferences to alternative institutions.
One of the keys to innovation will be the Post's capacity to embrace new technologies and transfer its trusted brands into the digital space. To achieve this, it will be critical for the Post to develop digital competencies along with the relevant operational efficiencies to support the new environment.
They now say the government is instituting regulatory and policy interventions geared towards catalyzing the changing postal and courier market.
Postal and courier system is not merely a pillar. It is a cornerstone of e-commerce and the digital economy. The ministry is finalizing a development of a national addressing system policy and a tender registration, which will provide the necessary framework.
However, the PCK has had several near-death blows before. Could this be the turning point?
It's crucial to acknowledge that the global postal landscape is undergoing rapid transformations, driven in large part by the e-commerce revolution. The rise of digital transformation and logistics, particularly in the realms of e-commerce, e-payments, has become a strategic imperative for the Post.
This, they say, would take advantage of the more than 600 postal centers run by PCK by integrating the already existing courier and postal services into the digital marketplace. Hibak Said for TV47.
Now, President William Ruto has finally signed into law the Privatization Bill, which will see to the liquidation of select parastatals in the country to improve efficiency and the returns of such institutions. The contentious bill, which was a major bargain by the Kenya Kwanza government, had aimed to improve revenues churned by government agencies and other similar bodies, which were typically termed as cost centers. Now, let's get sporty, and the cabinet has approved the construction and renovation projects crucial for the hosting of the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027, that is AFCON. These after the executive held their meeting at the Kisumu State Lodge to deliberate on ways to elevate Kenya's standing in the sporting world, among other development topics. Our reporter Dennis Otieno tells us more.
Model and then expanded the capacity.
Construction and renovation works are expected to begin immediately at the Nyayo National Stadium, the Kasarani Stadium, the Moi Stadium in Uasin Gishu County, as well as the Talanta Sports Complex in Nairobi, after the cabinet approved the projects during the state cabinet meeting at the Kisumu State Lodge.
So that we can deliver to the people of Kenya.
The project that targets to elevate Kenya's standing in the sporting world will see the construction of the Talanta Sports Complex from scratch. This stadium will be located along Gong Road, Nairobi, and will host a capacity of 60,000 fans, as well as accommodate 5,000 cars in the parking lot. The world-class stadium will also have 2 training pitches and the football arena. Meanwhile, the Kasarani, Nyayo and Moi Stadia will have extensive renovations done on them, including upgrades to the changing rooms, the medical room, the broadcasting box, the tartan tracks and the stadium bazaar stores.
This ministry has paid attention to developing a comprehensive master plan for sports and arts infrastructure. And I'm very happy to announce to the people of Kenya that today, Kenya now has a concise, comprehensive, robust sports and arts infrastructure master plan.
The upgrades are designed to meet the standards set by the Confederation of African Football (CAF) for the prestigious event, positioning Kenya as a competitive sporting destination. The Ministry of Sports had on 19th September announced that the Kasarani, Nyayo and Moi Stadium will be closed indefinitely to pave way for the project to commence under the management of the Kenya Defence Forces. However, the construction had stalled, awaiting the cabinet's approval that has now been effected. Dennis Otieno, TV47 Sports.
Thank you, Dennis, for that. The Rashid Abdallah Grassroots football tournament that looks to identify and develop talent in Kwale County entered its last 16 stage as teams battled it out against each other in a bid to reach the finals. Kombani Youth qualified into the quarterfinals after defeating Lezium FC 2-0, courtesy of goals scored by Chiwaya Omar and Asu Tigana. Meanwhile, Bongwe FC fell to a 2-0 defeat at the hands of Kitivo.
Kwa majina naitwa Omar Kanangulo. Game leo imekuwa poa, though haikuwa rahisi. Naona kila mmoja ameona venye watu wamejituma, na hiyo yote ni kwa sababu ni mazoezi tu. Hakuna shortcut katika football, mazoezi tu. Kulingana na matayarisho sasa hii yameshinda zile season zingine. Kwa hiyo kuna matumaini ya kufika finali na kubeba trophy.
Na hii win ya leo si kwamba ni bahati nasibu, ni win yenye tulikuwa tumefanya preparation. Na haikuwa preparation tu ya round 16, ilikuwa preparation ya round of 16, quarter, semi na final. So tuna imani kwamba hii safari tumeianza na inshallah sisi tuenda pale final. Kimimi naona si kwamba kulikuwa na kurudi chini, ni technical kwa sababu tushapata bao mbili, tunafukuzia nini tena? Ni kuzuia tutoke na points. So hii knockout tena mambo mengi, ushapata bao mbili first half, cheza vizuri second half, win game. So si kwamba ni kwamba labda kwa tumezidiwa, ilikuwa ni technical ya kwamba wacha washambulie, lakini tumewabana hapa nyuma, hawezi toboa. Yes. Preparation tuongeza makali kidogo, yale makali ya leo tutanoa kidogo, tuone hapo kote itakuwa vipi. Na inshallah tutakempata, nafikiri wembe ni ule. Inshallah.
Now, Bidco United have registered their second win of the season after a 2-0 win against Banditry in the FKF Premier League match played at the Kasarani Annex. Bidco dominated the first half of the match, taking the lead inside 23 minutes of play through Sharif Musa's goal before Timothy Wainaina nodded the ball home to extend the lead for the Refiners in the 32nd minute. Meanwhile, the match between KCB and Muhoroni was abandoned prematurely after chaos erupted before the final whistle.
Mchezo leo sijafurahi kabisa. Ndio mchezo wa kwanza tumecheza kutoelewana. Pasi zilikuwa zendi mahali palipodhamiriwa. Kulikuwa kuna movement nzuri mbele ili forwards. Naona chances pia nafasi zimekuwa ngumu kutengeneza sababu movement yetu haikuwa mzuri mbele. Kwa wale ambao tulikuwa tunategemea kuna nafasi nyingi tumefanya kwenye mazoezi, lakini haikuwezekana.
Mpira unataka hivyo sababu ukiangalia last match tuliconcede bao za kichali sana. But lazima tungerudi pale tuangalie ni wapi tuliconcede sababu tulifungwa mabao individual mistakes. But kidogo ukiangalia level ya timu imecheza imekuwa a better team in terms of organization. Bandari tulijua watakuja hivyo na kuanza mechi kwa kasi. Sisi tukaamua to sit back, tukajaribu tuwapate na either set pieces ama hizo quick breaker.
Absolutely. With news done, business done, and sports done, time now for a short break right here on the Daily Report. We thank you for staying with us. But before that break, I still have, the PS, Umi Bashir. Thank you so much for staying with us. Remember, this conversation is happening on the eve of Utamaduni Day right here. That will be marked right here, actually, at the Bomas of Kenya in Nairobi. Madam PS, before you go to the break, earlier on you alluded that indeed, Kenyans have lost their culture. In a nutshell, what could some of the mitigation measures or some of the things that could be done, especially from the ministry, to try and make Kenyans go back to their roots?
Mm-hmm. So one thing would be to regulate the use of social media, especially TikTok, especially Snapchat, so that our children can use it for the purpose that it's supposed to be used for. Something that would lead to our cultures not being eroded. Another thing would be the languages. We currently had the UN recognize the Kiswahili language. And for us, it's an achievement as a country because we speak Swahili. But apart from Swahili, our local languages, our mother tongue, how then do we make our kids speak our mother tongue? So it starts from the house, from the home, through the parents, to encourage our children to speak the local dialects. Yeah.
And, when you say regulate, social media, what type of regulation are you, referring to?
Well, preteen can go on social media, or can go actually on the internet, and go to any website they feel like. And to be cool again, they will try anything under the sun to see what their friends across the globe, across the continents are doing, so that they can be cool and so that they can brag about something. So us as a country, we're Africans, and there are certain cultures that we have emulated over time through our parents, our grandparents, and this has been inculcated in us. Now, as a country, we have statutes, we have regulations, we have acts in place that guide us as a nation. Now, social media came about, and the whole internet thing came about. It's not been there for a very long time. So currently, we have the TikTok being misused, Snapchat being misused. So what I would push for is a certain regulation, a policy in place that would guide our kids accordingly.
Absolutely, and we'll be discussing more on how that can be achieved. Remember, on the eve of Utamaduni Day that will be marked here at Bomas, we'll be speaking to the PS for Culture, Arts and Heritage, that is Umi Bashir. That conversation is coming up next after this short commercial break. Do stay with us.
I want this done on file today.
But again, boss, it's already fine.
I say today.
Can I do it tomorrow?
Today.
Wait. What? 1 million? Excuse me, boss. I quit.
How do you quit? What are you going to do?
So, skiza boss, nimeshinda na Lotto Mita Mania. So, unacheka like kabisa kama ka organic farming, nitajijenga nako,
Toka hapa. Utarudi tu hapa.
Sawa. Adios.
It's bigger. Hourly cash wins. It's the Lotto Mita Mania. It's raining millions every hour. See your Lotto. Cheza Lotto Mita Mania. Ushinde 1 million every hour. Isitoshe, kuna mega grand draw ya hadi 200 million shillings kila Jumatano na Jumamosi. Cheza Lotto sasa. Timiza ndoto zako. Nenda kwa M-Pesa paybill number 77700. Andika neno chapa kama account name. Cheza na kati ya shilingi 50 hadi shilingi 2000 na ushinde sasa. Raundi hii ni more draws, more cash. The Lotto Mita Mania is here.
Over 18s only. Gaming can be addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been approved by the BCLB.
Every day, Kenyans face countless hurdles. Families struggling to put food on the table, children fighting malnutrition, and communities in need of quality healthcare. In a world where a small gesture can have an enormous impact, TV and Radio 47 invite you to be part of something incredible. Introducing Tender Wema. With just 1 shilling and 50 cents daily, taken from your airtime or data, you can be the light of change. Dial *354*47# and witness your compassion in action. Every shilling you
of its kind. And talk to us about that, Madam Pierce, because this is the first sort of official Utamaduni Day to be marked. What is the intention of it all?
Well, the most important thing, the thing that we want to achieve is that we recognize our diverse cultures. As a country, we have different cultures, and we want to appreciate each other's cultures as a country. We also want to live in unity and harmony as a country, because our cultures usually seem to divide us. But what we are pushing for is unity among ourselves. There are many cultures which someone would term negative cultures or backward cultures, like circumcision, like raiding when the young boys are becoming teenagers, or, you know, raiding your neighbor's cattle, you know, such things. But that is their culture. And the cultures of, for instance, marrying 4 wives and stuff like that, those are some of the things which we are trying to appreciate as Kenyans. The kind of foods we eat, the kind of dances we have, the attires that we wear. So what we are aiming for is exactly that.
Okay. And, you know, among the issues that, you know, have been of concern is that the culture, as you mentioned, indeed is, you know, eroding. Kenyans are abandoning their culture. You've talked about, you know, several ways of trying to mitigate that. But in the long run, it appears that we are different from our neighbors in Tanzania and, you know, other African countries, where ours, we seem to be dividing ourselves. We don't seem to appreciate, you know, the cultures from different communities, so much so that we make it very tribal. As a ministry, as a government, does that concern you?
Indeed, it does. I wouldn't say our cultures divide us as such, but this only happens during elections. If you are keen, you will see that during elections, everybody's tribe is, you know, everywhere. And well, Tanzanians have always practiced ujamaa. And for us, we've accentuated our tribes, our different cultures compared to the Tanzanians.
Okay.
Africans have different cultures. Kenya, for instance, we have close to 46 different tribes, and it is about time we appreciated each other. And differences in political views should not be a reason as to why you would not appreciate your neighbor. When we were growing up, we would go to our neighbor's house and we would eat their food, ugali, skuma, you know, mokimo, and you come back home and your friends would come with you and they would have the pilau, and you'd become so close and you'd grow together as a family. Back in the day, a parent would discipline a child within the community, within the estate. But these days, try and touch your neighbor's kid and you'll see fireworks. Yeah. So for us, our cultures are diverse. It's about time we became proud of our cultures. And as Kenya, the Maasai culture seems to stand out a lot, especially globally. Tourists seem to relate with the Maasai culture. And as we speak, we don't have a national dress, a national attire.
We do not seem to have one.
Yeah, so probably that's one of the things that will be talked about tomorrow. So I'm really excited about tomorrow. Utamaduni Day being the inaugural Utamaduni Day for us as a country. And the confusion that was there before will definitely come to an end now.
Okay. Let's talk about now the infiltration or the influence by the Western cultures and to what extent that does. Because to some point, whereas some activities, some practices were detrimental, others have been beneficial. But where do you sort of draw the line and say, okay, fine, we welcome this, we invite this to this extent, but upon this extent, you know, this doesn't end up eroding our own cultures?
Yeah. So there are positives and negatives of the westernization, so to say.
Yes.
And the social media has its positive times and it's got its negative times. For instance, the current, was it yesterday or the day before, there was some sort of demonstration on LGBTQ thing going on. And such things are eroding our cultures. As Africans, that was not our culture. But where we are right now, it is happening. globally, in our neighbors, in our own, neighborhood. And that is one of the things that is eroding culture, is we're emulating what the West is doing. And it is all in our faces. If you go on social media, it is there. If you go on the TVs, it's there. So then we use it positively.
Okay.
We capacity build our children. We restrict some of these things that are aired. Some of this, as I said, these social media sites. We regulate this as a country. Then we will achieve the fact that we don't want our cultures to be eroded. Another thing, the best of teachers are our parents. In the home where you are you a parent that's hands-on? Are you a parent that actually understands what your child goes through? Are you best friends with your child? Do you talk to your child? So these are some of the things that we're trying to make sure that we have as a foundation, as a basis for the child. Another thing is through the ministry, the State Department of Education, there are lessons in school that we have. There's PE, there's French lessons. We're also trying to see how we can then bring about different languages. Learn your mother tongue in school. I mean, Chinese are learning Swahili in their country. Why not us?
Yeah, we seem to be, and I was coming to that because we seem to be learning Chinese, other languages, French, Spanish. Does it seem that we have not been serious? We've only been saying we need to incorporate this in the syllabuses, but at the same time, it appears to just be a pipe dream.
Yeah, I get your point. But you see, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Okay.
And the thought and the process is there. The implementation needs legislations, need policies in place. So as a government, that is exactly what we're working on. Back in the day, if you speak Swahili in school, you were given the disc, the bone.
Yes.
And, you'd avoid speaking Swahili like the plague, and you'd speak English even if it's broken. And we used to say like Swahili is not cool. But as we grow up, you tend to appreciate your languages, your local, languages, the Kiswahili language. And I wish that we could also bring about a disc, the bone, where if you speak English and not Swahili, you're given, so that at least we can also be having Swahili Sanifu. Yeah, so tomorrow we've invited the whole country. We've invited the county governments, troops from different counties to come and perform tomorrow, entertain the public. We also have different gastronomy. We have different cuisines. So you will get to taste the anjera. There'll be, one of the villages will have the ingoho, another village, the mokimo. So you'll get to appreciate, and that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. So that the kids that come tomorrow will actually say, wow, I can actually listen to a story being told in my mother tongue, even if I don't understand it. I mean, we're making headway. We're getting somewhere,
Yeah, because on the flip side, Madam PS, the question would be if that mother tongue, the reintroduction of mother tongue in schools, at what point, because we are a cosmopolitan country, is it that you'd go teaching the 46 languages in schools? And, ideally, how would that conversation happen?
When I was in high school, I remember we had an option of taking French classes. A lot of us opted not to. So it's an option. It's not a forced thing like maths and Swahili, you get. So by the time you realize, I'm Kikuyu and I want to learn my mother tongue, there's an option. And you'll be examined. If you're Somali, like that, so the option, you give the children options. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about, apart from, looking at the whole dynamic and the demographics that we have as a country, commercializing our cultures still remains to be something that, is diamonds in the rough. We are not yet at a place where we can say, fine, whereas, tourism and, as you say, the Maasai, their culture seems to be the one that is still stuck on. But when you go to other places, how do you then commercialize? Because even you go to places like China, you're taken to some of their heritage places, the Wall of China and other regions. How do you then, as a country, commercialize and ensure that the people benefit from this?
Yeah. We have the best economic assets when it comes to our cultural heritage. Under me, I have the National Museums of Kenya.
Okay.
And I have the Heroes Council. I have the Bomas of Kenya, where we are today. And I have the Ushanga Initiative. The Ushanga Initiative deals with the beads that these women make at the bottom of the pyramid in pastoralist communities. And
those are some that you're wearing.
Yeah, I'm adorned in some of those. Yeah. And these are beautifully done by our women.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is get markets for them. They will do these beautiful beads, but they do not have a market that is sustainable, that they can sell their products and make, ends meet. You will find, the other day I was seeing Kiondo in a Louis Vuitton page. They were selling it for $1,000 or something, Kiondo, which if you go outside here, it's not even 1,000 shillings. So it is for us now as a State Department. We have come up with an application called Sana App, where we are going to showcase all the products, the Kamba carvings, the Kisi soapstone, the Ushanga made by our ladies, which have value addition, the belts that have Ushanga, the handbags that have Ushanga, so that someone can purchase these products from the comfort of their homes. You mentioned China. You can be in China and place an order online and you will get this product delivered to you, just like Amazon. So we are getting there. It is not going to be an easy task because we're yet to launch that, the app, and it is one of the things that I'm really working hard towards as a PS for culture and heritage. Then there's also the aspect of Kenya being the cradle of humankind, and our tourists seem to be very interested in our cultural tourism. They actually are more interested in our cultural practices compared to the beaches and the wildlife and also the beaches. If it is about sandy beaches and beautiful 7-star hotels, they have that in Miami, they have that in Dubai, but why Kenya? So they trickle in so that they can experience our different foods, our different cultures. They go to the Mara just to dance with the Maasai and experience that life. So one of the reasons as to why we're having Utamaduni Day is to appreciate our different cultures and also for the world to see that indeed we are not shy of our cultures. We're not shy of our different cuisines.
And someone would wonder, talking of appreciation, then why is culture so important?
Culture is very important because without culture, we are nothing. The Constitution of Kenya in Article 11 strongly stipulates that culture is the civilization of our nation. It is the backbone of our nation because without culture, then what are we as a people? We were brought up in a certain way many, many years ago. There's so much history and heritage in this country, thanks to our forefathers. We have gone through a lot from the colonial times to right now where we are, from the modernization, the civilization, the current technology that we have in place. And our cultures, our children will not know where they came from if we as parents don't appreciate that. And that is why the government of the day is emphasizing on celebrating Utamaduni Day. Then there is also the aspect of the arts that has recently come on board. And it's exciting for us because culture, the arts and heritage are under the same roof. We were not under the same roof previously. Arts was under sports. And we were somehow, with wildlife and tourism under the Ministry of Tourism. Right now, we are in the right place where we are under one roof. And, you cannot express your cultures without arts. You cannot expressly say that I want to talk about wall art or writings and drawings in caves in this country without mentioning arts. So that is why we're very excited about arts coming on board. Yeah, so that aside, tomorrow we have different troops, and it is good for Kenyans to know that it is absolutely free, and it is a day that the kids will enjoy because we're going to have all the bomas, all the villages in the country activated, in the bomas activated. So you'll have the Luya village, you'll have the Somali village where there'll be the camels, the milking of the camels, there'll be, Anjera, you'll go to the Indian village and so on and so forth. So I'm very excited about tomorrow.
And the Culture Bill 2023 is one that has been proposed by the cabinet. What would you know what perhaps it intends to achieve? Because you speak about the mitigation measures, trying to bring all these things on board, the app that you've talked about. What will be the Culture Bill 2023 be seeking to achieve?
Well, you see, for us, to not have a legislation on culture, and we have a State Department of Culture, was not sitting very well with us. So that is why, upon coming into office, immediately we came about drafting the legislation and taking it to cabinet.
Okay.
Without a guiding law, we cannot talk about what I've just mentioned. We cannot talk about regulating some of these practices that are eroding our cultures. We cannot talk about celebrating some of these cultures that we are so proud of. We cannot then sit at the table and talk about having each culture having a right to express themselves. Also, preserving and protecting our cultures. The bill strongly advocates for that. And this is an addition and a plus for us as a State Department. That aside, we also have the Kiswahili policy, Kiswahili bill that's coming up. We actually did it in English, and His Excellency brought it back to us and said, make sure it's in Kiswahili. So we had to redo it, get an expert in Kiswahili and make sure that we've redone it, drafted it in Kiswahili. So as a State Department, we have legislations in place that strongly support our cause being preserving, protecting our cultures and our heritage as a country. There is the issue of climate change.
Yes.
We have amazing heritage sites in this country. We have the Vasco da Gama Pillar. We have the Fort Jesus. And because of climate change, you tend to see that our heritage sites are getting dilapidated. There's the erosion, there's the salt, there's the crystallization thanks to the ocean. And we're very worried about Fort Jesus and Vasco da Gama specifically because these are World Heritage Sites recognized by UNESCO.
Yes.
So if you're not taking care of that, UNESCO is going to take action. So we had to come up with a buffer wall as a country, as a government, to ensure that we safeguard our heritage sites. Climate change is there, but we have to find mitigation, ways, not just sit down and complain. So that's why we also went to Vasco da Gama and constructed a buffer wall whereby we're separating the water, the ocean from our heritage site. Another thing that I'm also excited about would be the ratification of the UNESCO Convention on Illicit Import and Export of these objects that have been stolen previously. Artifacts and how we can get them back. So we had not ratified this UNESCO Convention of 1970. And for us, it is a plus. Currently, it's in the House, it's in Bunge. And once it is given the nod, now we take it to Foreign Affairs. And after that, we get the certificate. And then we become among the countries that have ratified this UNESCO Convention. Then we can actually say the 35,000 artifacts that are in almost 7 countries in this globe should give us back what rightfully belongs to us. But currently we're talking about, we want this back, we want that back, but we have not ratified the convention. So we are getting some back, but through diplomatic relations. The Americans, some of the institutions there, like the Illinois University, have given us some artifacts back called Vigango. A few months ago, there were 85. And I was very happy for that because it was just, diplomatic relations that we have with the Americans. Then comes the British Museum where you walk in and you find our artifacts displayed, but we cannot take them, So those are some of the things that we have, we're working towards as achievements for the State Department of Culture, the Arts and Heritage.
Will this ratification, enforce, because they have had these artifacts that were originally Kenyans for all these decades, will this ratification of the UNESCO or Convention of 1970 then ensure that we indeed get them back? Shall we go and say, okay, fine, here's the document, give us our artifacts back?
It doesn't work that way, but we are going to be listened to now after ratification of this convention. In about a week, I'm going to conduct a meeting that I have been following up on ratification. On getting back our repatriation of our artifacts. And we're having this with the group in the House of Commons in London. And it is a great thing that we are beginning to be heard. We are beginning to be listened to. Because if you don't talk about it, then no one is going to even, realize that what your intention is good. And these artifacts were stolen from us. And some of them were taken during the colonial period. Yeah, so for us, if we get this back, it will be a plus for us as a country. So we cannot go back and say, give us back what belongs to us. But what we can do as countries that have good diplomatic relations is see, okay, this is what we have ratified. We need 1, 2, 3, 4 back. As I said, there are 35,000 artifacts. And we did this through a research with the German Institute in conjunction with the National Museum of Kenya. And we realized that indeed there are a lot of our assets that are out of the country. So how do we make sure that we get them back?
Absolutely. Indeed, we are speaking to PS Umi Bashir on the eve of Utamaduni Day right here in Nairobi. That will be marked here in Nairobi, the capital of the country. We want to take a short break. When we come back, we speak of the significance of Bomas of Kenya and much more, because Bomas of Kenya, as you would know, has perhaps been associated with the political interventions, rather political activity in the country. But you also want to take a deeper perspective and look at this place that we are currently in, to be able to see how then you as a Kenyan can be able to learn more about your culture. You're watching The Daily Report. We are back in a few minutes.
Let's clear pimples. Step 1. Acne's Creamy Wash is a foamy and gentle cleanser that removes sebum and dirt in the pores. Step 2. Acne Soothing Toner maintains skin pH. Step 3. Acne Sealing Gel quickly clears pimple-causing bacteria. Mentholatum Acne clears, cares, and helps prevent pimples. Ruto.
And heritage, coming to you live from the Bomas of Kenya, a place that is significant. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're seeing your feedback, and I'll throw some of the questions, because Madam Pierce, we're seeing, the Kenyans seem to have in their minds alienated the Bomas of Kenya, or rather associated it with more of political activity that we've seen in the country, whereas that in its form and self is significant and, has played a big role in terms of, the culture and understanding the culture, because right here we are in a Luya village. What are some of the important things that perhaps they can be able, or rather they can see, and, whenever one just thinks, okay, I'll go to Bomas, and it's not just for ex-political activity, but then to just understand my culture?
Yeah. So first of all, I know we think of Bomas and we always imagine the IBC and the political drama that goes on every 5 years. But that is a narrative that we want to change. Bomas is basically a national baraza. Olden times, even kule kijijini, we have our elders sitting down under a tree to resolve issues. Like the Somalis have what we call the maslaha. Maslaha is where you sit under trees and resolve issues. So the Bomas of Kenya is basically a baraza where the who's and who's of this country have come together. The constitution was done here. It was actually unveiled here. And the constitution, that is 2010. And apart from that, Bomas means villages. It means Bomas. As you said, we're in the Luya village right now. We have 25 other villages where we experience different setups, different cultures. And tomorrow being Utamaduni Day, that is what we want to capitalize on, so that the people of Kenya can appreciate and see that indeed Bomas is not all about political, rallies and political meetings and political agendas that can be done here. The name came about many years ago as a home of our Kenyan cultures.
From the word Boma.
Yeah, from the word Boma, exactly. And it is a place where we want to appreciate our cultures. That is why the inaugural Utamaduni Day, scheduled for tomorrow, is happening here in Bomas.
Okay.
So that people actually appreciate what this Bomas is about. Yeah.
And a lot indeed, we will discuss, what the day will entail. But then let's go back now to matters heritage, because that falls still under your State Department. And you look at some of the issues, for instance, our national heroes. When you look at, someone like Dedan Kimathi, where he died, and, and preserving such, heritage and such issues and such things that, matter to, Kenyans in their own specific way, that seems to have been forgotten by the peers, because you find we do not seem to pay so much attention to that. How can we then mitigate?
Actually, I beg to differ. We have in place the Heroes Act, which strongly advocates and puts the needs and the importance of our heroes as a country. Heroes are celebrated on Mashujaa Day in this country, being the 20th of October. This year, we're going to have it in Kericho. So what has been happening is the fund for the Heroes Act, the fund that is under the Heroes Act has not been activated. That is what is holding us back. So that act is very good, especially to the heroes of this country. And we have also remembered the families of the heroes, the heroines, their wives, their children. The act strongly advocates that we take care of them too. So now, once the fund is activated, then we can sit down and say we will do 1, 2, 3 for the heroes. But we have very many heroes. We always give them awards at on the 20th of October. And we appreciate them. There are different categories of heroes, and some of them are sports heroes, the arts heroes, and philanthropists, religious heroes. We have, and this we get from the villages, the wards. We go down to the grassroots level and get this from the people, because we don't want to sit in Nairobi and decide, you know what, Umi Bashir is a hero. No, but there is someone down there in that village who saved someone, who saved a child from a crocodile, who brought money from, there was a time in Wilson, one of the staff got some money bag left on the plane by tourists, and he gave it back to the administration, and the owner was found. That is a hero. So for us, we have an act in place that strongly supports and advocates for the heroes of this country.
And when you look at Uhuru Gardens, are we still on course in, because it was unveiled in the previous regime, the previous era, much emphasis was put on it. How far is it? Because, that seemed to be a place where it was advocated at the time that, you'd go find and learn and, identify several, artifacts and be able to go through some history.
Yeah. So Uhuru Gardens is a beautiful place, but it is not under the State Department of Culture, Arts and Heritage. It is a museum indeed, and it is under the Ministry of Defense.
Okay.
And they deal with it squarely. So when we came in as a regime, it was already under defense, and that is where it is as we speak.
Should it come back to your ministry?
I would love for it to come back because it is a museum.
Yes,
it is a heritage site, and we have the Heroes Square in Uhuru Gardens. We have the Mau Mau veterans, their names engraved on the walls, yes, inside Uhuru Gardens. We have different exhibitions where we have the Turkana boy, you know, they are displayed. We have different...
the Tunnel of Martyrs.
Oh, yes, yes, you've been there. Yes. So it's a beautiful place, and it is indeed a museum because whatever is inside is basically what would be in our National Museum of Kenya.
You sound a bit skeptical about getting it back.
I would love to.
You'd love to?
I would love to.
Would you initiate the process?
I would love to, because for Uhuru Gardens to be run, to be managed, it should be done by people who understand how to deal with artifacts, people who understand the management of a museum. And we have that at the National Museums of Kenya. We have researchers, we have scientists who strongly advocate that we have Uhuru Gardens with us. But of course, if we are given back, we would be more than happy. Yeah, absolutely.
And then now, when you look at the development of, you know, when you say we want to maintain our culture, but at the same time we want development, at what point, Madam PS, do you draw the line and say then development does not block culture and culture does not block development?
Yeah. We cannot run away from civilization. We cannot run away from development. All the infrastructures we have in place as a country is because of, you know, forward thinking and the leaders that we have and we had who saw Kenya in a certain light.
Yes.
So our cultures, on the other hand, should not be forgotten because they are what make us Kenyan. When you go home, you come from a certain community. When you go home, there are certain foods you eat. But right now, we have KFC, we have pizzas, we have kids who think ordering for pizza and KFC is more exciting and it's cool compared to eating mokimo, eating anjera, githeri. And these are healthy foods, actually. That is what our parents and us have been brought up with. And there comes a time where we have to accept and go how the world is going, go with the trends. We want to make culture cool again because culture is not boring. Culture is not a cake. Culture is what has made us as a people. We have different museums. Like, for instance, when you go to DC, Washington, you find that there's the Black Museum. And what happens there is amazing. The music has been curated. The rappers from PDD to Luther Vandross to, you know, every rapper and every singer you can think of back in the day have all been put in that museum. They're being appreciated, the actors. So for us as a country, we have the likes of Swahili Nation. Do you even know who Swahili Nation is?
Yes, I do.
Swahili Nation. We have the likes of Jua Kali, Genge. Genge was being appreciated in the Grammys some time back. But we as a country, what are we doing to curate and make sure that we appreciate our arts, we appreciate our actors, we appreciate our, you know, heroes as a country? While we go outside, we always find some sort of, oh, wow, you're Kenyan, you're wearing the Kenyan bracelet. Oh, yeah, you're Kenyan. But when we are here, you see someone speaking the language and I'm like, what is she saying? What is he saying? But when we meet internationally, we tend to appreciate each other. So that is one of the reasons why we have Utamaduni Day. So that the kids can come here and see, wow, the Kambas do this. This is how we dance. They're our brothers. We have to live with them and appreciate them. Oh, the Meru, they do this, you know. Not only remember during elections that, oh, we need the vote. that is who and who, that is so and so, that needs to come to an end. And that is why we have the Bomas of Kenya. God has given us Bomas of Kenya. So we are making use of the Bomas of Kenya.
Yeah. Do you envision that we will get to a point, Madam Pierce, where we shall be able to say, fine, we are from different communities, 46 as you mentioned, but then we do not, because if you go to Tanzania, there are some people who even do not believe that Tanzanians, even the Tanzania country has more tribes than Kenya, yet they speak the majority of the language spoken is Kiswahili, Swahili. Shall we get to a place where perhaps in not so much of copying Tanzania, we seem to embrace ourselves despite our different languages, speak Swahili or English, but then we are one nation.
Julius Nyerere did a great thing by uniting Tanzanians and discouraging tribes, discouraging, different what do you call it, language division that might be there, thanks to Ujamaa. And for us, I think that is where we went. We didn't capitalize, we didn't put much effort in ensuring that we're uniting each other, as a country and as a people. But you see, we have the Constitution, which strongly stipulates that we are one, and we have to put our cultures before ourselves, and we have to unite thanks to our cultures. It is the civilization. The Constitution says, Article 11, culture is the civilization of a nation. And what is this? We talk about culture being backward, but our constitution tends to say otherwise. It is the civilization. So it is us in the leadership, it is us as government to ensure that we unite the people. There is peace, there is love and unity that we keep singing in the national anthem. About the national anthem, we have the loyalty pledge that we used to have back in the day, but not schools rarely, barely seeing the loyalty pledge anymore.
That sounds even like jargon to, kids of this current generation.
So I pledge my loyalty to the Republic and, to the President of the Republic of Kenya. So these are some of the things that you had to learn when you're kids. And I think it grounded us very well. And that is exactly what we want for our kids. And if our kids don't appreciate our cultures, if we don't curate our cultures, then we're failing as a people. In the National Museums of Kenya, we have the natural product industry. This is an initiative that documents and digitizes all our indigenous herbs, our indigenous trees. We have the miti shambas that we used to see the Maasai carrying around in jerry cans. But back in the day, before the civilization came about, we had the herbs which were used for ailments, for acne, for such things.
Stomach issues.
Kilifi, for instance, have a plant called mturituri. These are seeds, and from the seeds from that plant actually are used by women as a contraceptive. It's used for family planning. So when the woman does not want to get pregnant, she takes those seeds. When she wants to get pregnant, she stops taking those seeds. But here in Nairobi and the developed counties, we seem to have, certain contraceptives that we have to swallow as a pill or whatever. But back in the days, our grandfathers, our great-grandparents used to use these seeds. So what we're trying to do as NMK is digitize and document all these assets, the indigenous assets that we have as a country. So we're going through all the counties, coming with agreements between ourselves as a national government and the county governments, whereby we will say, listen, we are in your county, we want to document your herbs, your indigenous plants that you have. And, because of climate change, a lot of things are changing. A lot of things are being eroded. And with time, all these herbs I'm talking about, they'll no longer be there. So what are we doing about that? We are putting them in a system, in a way that they're documented at that grassroots level by the youths of that country, by the county governments of that county, and we do this in conjunction with the elders of that county. And we sign agreements, and we employ 30 youths in each county who help us get, these assets documented and digitized.
Absolutely. Let's now go to the arts and, music, whatever you produce, the content that we churn out is something that has been subject to question. We've seen the type of content that we churn out as a country. I mean, good content is getting out there on Netflix, on Showmax. I mean, in going with the modernization of the country. However, the music is something that is really, in terms of the Gengeton you were talking about earlier on, we do not seem now to have music that is unifying per se.
We do, I think, because...
We do, but in terms of, the genres that we are producing nowadays, do you think that there is a problem that needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. I think we get carried away as a country and appreciate other music like amapiano and the Nigerian music and the bongo. And I think it's us who don't appreciate our music. We have amazing music and we have real talent. What we need to do probably, and I'm new in arts is new.
It's new, yeah.
So those are some of the things that I would love to see how we can work with the music industry, how we can support our musicians, matters copyright, and we have amazing talent. We have had the likes, as I said, of Swahili Nation, of the Tarabs that we have in this country. We have serious, talented young kids who are coming up.
Yes.
How then do we make sure that the content that they're bringing out is relatable and is beneficial and of use to our people and does not disrespect our cultures? So some of those things are what I will definitely be looking forward to working on.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of now preservation and documentation, do you think that going to schools and involving the young people, in as much as you're a cosmopolitan nation, to be able then to have situations where students and learners who are in urban centers, cities like Nairobi, can have field trips deeper, to be able to feel and to be part of it. Whereas, someone will get to a stage and then they travel abroad and then they seem to have assimilated into a different culture. Do you think that then the grassroots of going back to the basics of learners is something that an idea that as a department you'd be willing to absorb?
It's actually very exciting, to experience how a child in Turkana is going through the classes. And for the Turkana child to come to Nairobi Primary and see how the classes are being done. It'd be exciting because then you would look at cultures from different lenses. And that is something that, of course, we would have to work with in conjunction with the Ministry of Education, because for us, we can just talk about it, but the implementing body would definitely be the Ministry of Education. But we have CBC, and the kids are actually experiencing that in their very own homes, in their own schools here in Nairobi. And back in the day, we had school trips. We would go to Baringo, we'd go see how Lake Baringo is, and we would boil an egg in some hot
springs.
Hot spring. And go to Mwea to see where rice comes from. But we were never taken to Wajir to see how, things are. We were never taken to Mandera. So I think it's about time we mingle and see how is Mandera, how is Turkana, how is Mombasa. Mombasa guys go because it's coast. But for our kids to appreciate each other, we definitely have to take them to places like Utamaduni Day. Bring your kids tomorrow. I mean, it's an exciting day. There'll be ice cream and also there'll be mokimo. So
nice. I'll give you a moment as you end up, to speak much on that. But as you enter the home stretch of this conversation, whereas some cultures, some traditions have been eroded, there are still some that, are still being held on, some detrimental. When you look at matters even FGM, are we as a country heading to a place where we say, okay, shun that we do not want is FGM, we can keep the rest?
Yeah. There are some things that are confused, especially the community that I come from.
Yes.
There are some things that are cultural.
Am I asking which one it is?
I'm Somali. I come from Wajir. So where I come from, we practice FGM. And FGM is a cultural practice. It's nothing to do with religion, and we seem to confuse that a lot. So there are cultural practices that happen that we confuse as, as being brought about by religion. We have communities that drink blood, the Maasai, for instance. We will look at it like, oh my God, why would someone drink blood? But it is something that is their culture, and we should appreciate their cultures. There's some that are negative. For instance, FGM, I would not personally encourage it because there's no benefit whatsoever to it. And God created people in such a way. So who are you as a human to come and, change that? God did not delegate his role to anybody.
Yeah.
The second thing is there's the raids that happen in these pastoralist communities.
Yes.
For a boy to be termed as a man, he has to do certain things. These are backward, so to speak, cultures. But you see, you have to be very careful where you want to change cultures. Culture is not static. Culture seems to evolve. We have the matatu culture in Nairobi, for instance. That's cool. And we are very proud of our matatu culture. And we're actually having a matatu here tomorrow at Utamaduni. It's just so that people know that culture is not boring and it's not stagnated. So the cultures that are there, the negative cultures, so to speak, they're positive to those communities. So probably what we can do is have some sort of capacity building at the grassroots level, together with the leaders, together with the women, because women are the best of teachers, if you ask me. So where we can go back to the grassroots level and say, look, guys, this has its detriments. We have conflicts between the communities because of these practices. How then do you stop this and live together in harmony?
Absolutely. And then now, as you wind up, talk to us now what to expect tomorrow. It is the inaugural Utamaduni Day. What time does the event start? How many people are you even expecting?
Yeah. So the event starts at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It is free. The entry is free. It is at the Bomas of Kenya, and it's the whole day. So we're expecting guys from counties. We're expecting cultural performances, troops that come all the way from Lamu, Turkana County. We're coming from Bungoma, Wajir, and they're all going to perform at the auditorium here. And there's no, mtukufu rice, the normal formalities that we have in public functions, public holidays. We have, it's a laid-back day where we're expecting close to 10,000 people. We are expecting the members of the executive. We are expecting the general public, who are very important to us. We are expecting ambassadors. We are expecting dignitaries. And of importance, of course, are our children, so that they can experience what kind of cultures we have as Kenya. We are also having the villages activated, whereby you can go to any village and see how do you then slaughter a chicken? How do you then make anjera? How do you then dance this dance? And storytellings will be going on in each and every village within Bomas tomorrow. So I think it's something to be excited about, being the first Utamaduni Day for us as Kenya. And I'm really, really excited about it.
What would be some of the outcomes that you expect to see after tomorrow, that you'd look back and say, we indeed held Utamaduni Day? I mean, this is what we have achieved. What are some of the objectives and some of the things that you want to see happen after tomorrow?
Well, after tomorrow, I'm sure what I'm looking forward to is harmony and unity among Kenyans. We've come from a year of politics, a year of elections, and we have 5 years to go. So for me, is start a journey whereby we love each other, we live in harmony, in unity, where we will appreciate each other's cultures, and wherever we work, wherever our homes are, we look around and say, indeed, I respect your culture, I respect where you come from, and you do the same for me. So I think it's a unifying factor, the fact that we appreciate our cultures, and we actually celebrate our culture. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm also looking forward to also learn other cultures myself. As a PS for Culture and Heritage, I tend to lean towards Maasai and Somali, I've been told. So I also look forward to see what other cultures have.
Will perhaps the president, the first lady, deputy, the second lady, whom do you expect whom do you expect from the top executive?
Yeah, that's a surprise.
A surprise?
Yeah, so I'm excited. And I really, really want you guys to come so that you see who among the top is going to be here tomorrow.
Absolutely. I want to give you a chance, to speak to Kenyans through that camera, Madam PS, and speak to them about the importance of not only tomorrow, but our cultures and being one and uniting ourselves as a country.
So it is important that first and foremost, we appreciate each other as a people and respect each other, and also experiment and explore each other's cultures. Tomorrow being the inaugural Utamaduni Day, it is a day like none other, where we will dance, we will eat different cuisines, appreciate each other's gastronomies, and we will indeed be united, and we will live in harmony as the people of Kenya. Happy Utamaduni Day.
Absolutely, and that is the point where we wind up this conversation with the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Culture, Arts and Heritage, speaking to so much about what is happening tomorrow, but also what the ministry is doing and how as Kenyans we can come together. Do not shy away if you'll be in Nairobi to come and explore your culture, experience others' cultures right here at the capital, specifically at the Bomas of Kenya.